Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's Andrew. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! Hi.
Woo! That might have been the best introduction we've had so far. Welcome to the show, Vermin Supreme.
Well, thank you very much for having me, nerd. Nerd Tom, and all the other beautiful nerds out there in Nerdland. It's great to be participating with my fellow nerds.
You know, I was watching a video of you, and you were talking about how you feel like one of your key constituencies are the various types of nerds out there. Why do you think you attract so much nerd support?
I believe that so many subcultures are united under that umbrella of geek and nerd culture. I mean, people like to nerd out on a lot of different things, and I think they just have a natural affinity for memes. Number one, I think they're very steeped in meme culture. I think there's that sense that they're a little bit of outsider culture thing going on there. I think they have a good sense of humor. That a lot of nerds use humor as a coping mechanism, perhaps at times, and they're generally nonconformist. I think they're a little bit out of the mainstream. I think they have a great affinity, and I have a great affinity for them because I am certainly as far as outside of the mainstream and perhaps normal reality activities as anything or anyone, and I think that might have to do that. What do you think? What do you think it is?
Well, I think a lot of nerds never felt completely integrated into the mainstream. And so I think we naturally are a little bit, to your point, nonconformists, and we gravitate towards leaders or candidates or initiatives or ideas that are not quite middle of the road, and we feel like that's aligned with our personal history. And then I think on top of that, a lot of nerds tend to be very interested in like the details and data and logic, and oftentimes you get a lot of rhetoric from traditional politicians, and that kind of turns people off. So those would be my theories. But, I think the Libertarian Party certainly has an elegance to it. And I'm curious to get your thoughts about why do you think that the supporters of Andrew Yang should consider supporting the Libertarian Party? I'm not sure if you followed his campaign or not, but curious what your thoughts are.
Well, of course, the Libertarian Party itself is it could be described on some elements as a nerd political party in a way. They're definitely outside of the mainstream. They're definitely wonks. They're definitely political nerds, and they're definitely Robert Rules of Order nerds. And of course, there's any number of other nerd subcultures that participate in the Libertarian Party. There's all sorts of freaks and cryptocurrency nerds and sex nerds and just all sorts of strange and wonderful practices. But of course, that may be true of any given political party or subculture or celebrity supporter or whatever. Of course, as I was seeking the Libertarian Party nomination, I was indeed actively pimping out the Libertarian Party platform, if you will, which is available at lp.org/platform. Ultimately, the Libertarian Party is a party that is composed and comprised of anarchists and minarchists. People who generally believe that the government is problematic, that pretty much any thing that the government sets out to do is going to be mismanaged and inefficient compared to as if the private sector were attempting to administer the same project. Say, for example, it just adds like a whole bunch of different layers of bureaucracy. The government creates its own bureaucratic class, if you will. So, are libertarians? And essentially, the Libertarian Party platform, it is statist in the sense that it recognizes the state. I mean, it recognizes that the Libertarian Party is in fact a political party, and it is engaging in the political party process, and thus acknowledging on some level that the existence of the state and our willingness to work within it to attempt to dismantle it and minimize its harm. It's a harm reduction strategy in a way. Of course, the Libertarian Party is not, there's a lot of misconceptions about the Libertarian Party and libertarianism and libertarians in general. Of course, it took me many years to, just work my way around and discover that a lot of these tropes were not necessarily true. And of course, one of them is that the Libertarian Party is a right-leaning monolith. And that in and of itself is not true. There is an internal left and right spectrum within the party itself. There are a number of different strands of libertarian thought represented by the party. I will point out that it seems to be, often expanding a little bit. It seems to be expanding a little bit. More people are open towards the left, and of course, my candidacy drew a lot of very interested people who are indeed left-leaning. We drew the attention of a lot of the Bernie supporters and a lot of the Yang supporters, and ultimately a fair amount of the Tulsi supporters. And of course, I think that is because I myself come from a left anarchist background and perspective. Cut my teeth on Kropotkin, and mutual aid is a very important thing to me. And one of the things that a lot of people can't even imagine, in fact, a lot of members of the Libertarian Party have a hard time wrapping their head around, is that there is, in fact, a Libertarian Socialist Caucus within the Libertarian Party. Now, it is indeed anti-authoritarian, and it is definitely, they're against the state. And essentially, that's sort of what it takes. Now, to join the Libertarian Party, there's a simple agreement that you must agree to abide by the non-aggression principle. And that simply states that violence is illegitimate, and that should only be used in self-defense of yourself or your property, and by extension, your loved ones. Not to say that your loved ones are your property in any way, shape, or form. No, that would be a misnomer. So ultimately, those are the base. I would recommend that people take a peek at the Libertarian platform, lp.org/platform, and just think about the where we overlap on the Venn diagram. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things that you will disagree with, but there are certainly a number of things that you will fully, wholeheartedly embrace. We're very anti-war. We are completely against foreign interventionism. We are all about personal responsibilities and freedoms. We are about, and I mean, we've been way ahead of the curve on drawing attention to police and police abuse and the police state and surveillance and all of those things. Granted, and ultimately the platform, it's consistent with sort of an anarchist perspective. Now, once again, for me personally, I have a lot of nuance and subtlety, and it's more about harm reduction and priorities and prioritizing which parts of the government that we would dismantle. I mean, sometimes you'll see like during the debates, you'd have a candidate say, for example, day number 1, we are going to end Medicare. Day number 1, we are going to end Social Security. And we're going to abolish the FDA and the CDC. And granted, these things are consistent with a platform of dismantling the government, but when presented as standalones to normal people, they sound extreme and outrageous and off-putting. And so, unless you're going to include the transitional nature and the plan of how to get from where we are to where we would like to be, this post-state society that we would like to imagine. I mean, we're sort of operating on this utopian vision of what would be the most wonderful ponytopia, if you will. Because I'm also I like the ponies too.
Yes, I've heard that.
and I hate to start out so seriously and giving you this more serious analysis, but your question sort of begged it. So I would point out that libertarians, are not, we are not against universal health care, for example. However, libertarians are against the state or the government administrating it, because they believe, and we believe, that it's just grossly inefficient. I mean, the bureaucratic level tags on about 30% to the cost of healthcare and things like that. And so by decentralizing and sort of scaling down the government, but how do we do that? By building up our communities and building up the parallel structures that must exist in order for us to sort of wean ourselves off of our need for the government. Now, of course, a lot of the Yang Gang, a lot of the interest, and when I was interfacing with a lot of people, there was a lot of pressure, pressuring, Vermin. You need to be for UBI. You need to adopt UBI. But unfortunately, it's pretty much a non-starter from the perspective of the libertarians, because they firmly believe that that the government is extorting you, that they are threatening you at the barrel of a gun or imprisonment for your wages, that the government demands 30% of your wages. And libertarians posit the belief that if there was not 30% being taken from your wages, then you would probably have enough to operate in a more orderly fashion and have more say into it. I mean, perhaps there would be no need for UBI if the taxes were cut to the bone. So that's one possible theory. But I would like to, of course, I'm here tonight to really talk about free ponies for all Americans and ponynomics, of course. Not many people understand ponynomics to the full extent that it needs to be understood in order to adopt it as an alternative economic system. And of course, it has nothing to do, and is quite contrary to libertarian beliefs, because they're always on me like, Vermin, there's no such thing as a free pony. And it's like, well, what part of free do you not understand? So many people ask me, Vermin, is it true that we are going to literally be using ponies for currency? And I say, of course, that would be completely ridiculous until we can make them very, very small. And don't worry, I do have scientists working on that as we speak. Now, the thing to understand about a pony-based economy and ponynomics is that once we all possess our free ponies, once again, they are free, they cost nothing, they cost you nothing, they cost nobody nothing, because they are by definition free ponies. So once all Americans possess their free pony, then they also not only possess their pony, they own their pony, and they possess the equity contained within their pony. Now, of course, once you have equity in something that you own, you can certainly use it as collateral to borrow against. So essentially what we're attempting to do is establish a class of pony-based debt. And of course, debt is a very, very important part of any economy. People buy it, people sell it. Banks make vast sums of money off of their debt, in other people's debt. The government sells debt in the form of bonds. Countries hold other countries' debt. So it's a really good thing. And so we will be able to bring in an entire class of the brightest and the best minds of our generation from all the Ivy League schools to help create all these amazing, opaque, almost impossible to understand financial instruments based on pony debt, financial troubled pony asset thing, things of that nature. And so once we have established all this pony-based debt, it's going to start pumping through the economy, and we are going to create a bubble of pony-based debt in the economy. And it's going to be a very, very big bubble. And of course, everybody knows that a bubble is an amazing thing to have in your economy, because that means that all cylinders are firing, means lots of employment, means Wall Street is making all sorts of money hand over fist. Everybody's super excited. But oftentimes these bubbles burst. So this is going to be a completely different type of bubble, because this pony-based debt bubble is going to be reinforced and steel belted and last forever. Thank you. I'm Vermin. So I hope that explained a lot to you and your listeners.
Vermin, you had me in this interview up until we started talking about the ponies. I thought you seemed very I could understand where you're coming from in terms of libertarianism.
Yeah. Well, you need to separate the two, and you need to compartmentalize the two. There's the serious Vermin trying to explain libertarian principles, and then there is the batshit character of Vermin Supreme who talks a lot of crazy stuff. Once again, once you know that there are two, very different things, and not, they won't cause such cognitive dissonance. You won't be trying to see how the two things connect, because they really don't. And of course, that was a little bit of difficulty I ran into seeking the nomination of the Libertarian Party, because not everybody was able to do that. But that's okay.
What's the rationale, Vermin, behind the kind of tongue-in-cheek pony Vermin? Why go that route? Why not just stick with the kind of logical, sensible?
Well, once again, for over 30 years, I have been running a facetious, satirical campaign. Which I have used as a critique of the ongoing current system. It seems to be current whenever I present it. And it was a communication strategy that I had developed over the years, skill set upon skill set, and just finding these amazing talking points that had such resonance with the people, and the willingness to wear a magical rubber boot. You see, I have this rubber boot on my head.
I noticed that.
It is a magical rubber boot, and it has very magical powers. And the magic of the boot is it has allowed me to amplify my free speech First Amendment voice exponentially. It has allowed me to communicate with millions upon millions of people across the planet. It has allowed me to interact with media from around the flat Earth. And of course, there's a lot of speculation about the boot. Is there some sort of like little space alien creature inside the boot attempting to control my emotions, thoughts, and movements? No, that's not true. Essentially, the boot itself is an alien that has taken the form of a boot and then attached itself to my head and does indeed control my thoughts and emotions and feelings. Quite frankly, it's all here in my book, I Pony, Blueprint for a New America. It is indeed a book about the future, a future long after a Vermin Supreme presidency, after everybody has their ponies, after zombie power fuels the nation, and after secret dental police have set up checkpoints every couple hundred yards. It is a warning from the future, from the people of the future to you, the people of their past, your present, that Vermin Supreme is a madman and must be stopped. It's available at iponythebook.com. But once again, a completely separate thing. It's not reality based. It's autoerotic fan fiction in a sense. And so, to your question, me being a goofball, me presenting, the free pony thing and zombie power as real things at the debates, and glitter bombing homophobes, and interacting with real life Republican and Democratic presidential candidates and asking them stupid questions, I found to be a very effective method of criticizing. It has allowed using the humor has allowed me to be considerably more aggressive in my approach to in approaching different situations. It has allowed me to intervene in very tense political situations between protesters and change things up a little bit. and change reality. So ultimately, it was never particularly a serious endeavor. Now, I was always willing and ready and happy to break the fourth wall and give the context and the exposition that might be needed to explain what I was doing to reporters and things, which will. But I have always maintained that if I was just a regular looking dude without a boot on my never have been able to catch on. I would never have captured the imagination of so many people. And so essentially it is this presentation of wacky vermin that can do whatever the heck I want because I have that license as a clown, as a satirist, as a and all of these things. And so essentially by doing what I had been doing for 30 years, it brought me to a level of notoriety as a candidate. So essentially, Serious Vermin never would have come into being if it weren't for batshit crazy Vermin. Now, I noticed that the video drops. Is my audio dropping too?
Your audio is not dropping. Good. That's the good news.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That is good news for America. And so yeah, I mean, people really love to see me being silly. I think, and I think that's what is what attractive. I mean, I had a few different encounters over the years with John McCain, for example. And I asked him once if he supported mandatory toothbrushing laws, and he came back and said yes. And in fact, his campaign staff had lots of experience hiding in people's bathrooms late at night to make sure they brushed. And now I asked him once if it was true that Karl Rove was responsible for the destruction of the Old Man of the Mountain, the natural feature that was up in New Hampshire that fell down not too long ago. And he said, yes, it was true. He heard that Karl Rove went up with dynamite and blew it up, and he asked the FBI to look into it. So he went with it. So people are more prone to play pretend with me. And then, but a different time, I went to this other breakfast sponsored by a radio station or something, and John McCain was there, and I did not wear the boot, and I wore a suit and sort of came off like this college professor-y looking cat. And I asked him a question about Big Mountain, the treatment of the Hopi and the Navajo out west there in tribal sovereignty. And so I asked a serious question, and I think I phrased it wrong, but nonetheless, he got very upset and very defensive, and it started like talking shit at me. And I think that really just cemented the fact in my mind of the effectiveness of absurdity and humor, as opposed to more serious on the level heckling or bird dogging or however you might want to define it. I had a wonderful time with Andrew Yang up in New Hampshire. I don't know if you had ever seen that footage.
Yeah, I think I did.
He was coming out of this pinball arcade where he'd given. And in fact, I presented Andrew with a copy of my book, and I'm not sure. I don't think he read it, and I think he's ashamed to admit that he hasn't read the book, and that some staffer probably put it somewhere. I'll definitely send him another copy if he wants, but he should, and so I did. When I had that encounter, I had this beautiful vision in my mind that I wanted to literally shower him with money. And so I brought up several $100s. I autographed them all. I was giving them out to his audience. And then when he came out of the event, I just like, Andrew Yang, I just started showering him with money. And I thought it was pretty funny. I think most people admit it was funny. Andrew seems to think it was pretty amusing. and no harm, no foul. So it was a fun little enjoyable prank. And an interesting thing about the aftermath of that is some people put up that autographed dollar bill on eBay and sold it for at least $10, I think. So I increased the value of U.S. currency
Wow.
1,000 times simply by writing my name on it, and so that's pretty impressive right there. And that's what I can do for America. And so if Andrew Young does. If Andrew Yang does become president and he does make me the treasurer and my signature appears on every bill, we can only imagine what that would do for the economy.
Incredible. What would you do if you cross paths with President Trump? Would you rain money on him, or would you do something else?
I have crossed some paths with him. I've been close to him, and he just seems confused, very confused. Not, he's looking. The one time he was just like looking at me like he couldn't quite figure out what was going on. And I think a lot of people who are very literal people have that issue. So I'm not sure. I have a feeling I might yell something very rude to him if I had that opportunity. Because
if
he's real madman who must be stopped.
Yeah, he's if you're concerned about the state exerting too much power on the people, I think a lot of his, sort of recent actions in some cities is probably a cause for some concern. What are your thoughts on what were your thoughts, Vermin, on Oh, I see we have a little bit of a time delay. I'll ask a quick question. Can you walk us through, Vermin, the primary process for the Libertarian Party and what your experience was like running in that race?
Yes, it was very interesting. It was like something I'd never done before. Because as I said, I was just running for lulz. Every other previous election year, every 4 years, I would spend a week or two up in New Hampshire, a week or two, at the conventions, and maybe a week at the inauguration. It was 4 weeks out of a year every 4 years, and that was enough to sort of give me this level of notoriety. And over a year and a half ago, my campaign manager, Desiree Lindsay from Texas, reached out and asked me if I was interested in running a serious campaign. So I had to give it some very serious thought, and ultimately decided that I would do that. And of course, it would involve considerably a lot more work than I had ever done before in a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I raised more money than I had spent on every previous campaign together, added up over the last 30 years. I developed a campaign staff from both the left and the right side of the party, and they helped guide me through the process. Essentially, it was about a year, almost 2 years of attending state delegations, state conventions across the United States. The different states are allotted different numbers of delegates. The nominating convention itself that takes place is decides. There's usually about 1,000 plus delegates divided up across the country, and it is at the nominating convention where that decision is made. Who will be the presidential candidate and who will be the vice presidential candidate, and they don't choose them together. It's an interesting little quirk of the Libertarian Party that it's not a ticket that is elected, that the delegates choose by majority. Whatever candidate is the first to achieve 51% of the delegates' votes wins. The primaries that you had heard about were essentially straw polls. Some were run by state parties in some states. Others were run by the state, and essentially that was sort of a function of the Libertarians having ballot access and having got enough signatures to get on the ballot. And so a lot of the states that they're on the ballot of require participation in the state primary. So even if I believe that if the party didn't even care to be part of the primary, they had to in order to maintain their ballot access. So yeah, I won a few primaries. I was on a number of ballots, more ballots than I'd ever been before. In previous election campaigns, it was only the New Hampshire primary because that was the bang for the buck,
Mm-hmm.
the nation's spectacle that draws every candidate and every media outlet in the world. And so I've certainly used that to my advantage. So I feel like I did pretty well.
You came really close to, I mean, not that far off from the eventual nominee. Were
That's
you?
true. I made it to the fourth round of ballot.
Yeah.
We use ranked choice voting.
Uh-huh.
So people got to choose their first, second, and third choices, and all that got shaken out. And then the person who receives the lowest vote total, or less than 5% of the delegates vote, they get dropped, and that's that. And then the people who got something more go on to the next ballot. So yeah, it was ballot, and of course a lot of horse trading's happening, and people are calling and they're trying to whip the votes, but I have a feeling that's probably not a great word to use these days. And like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it looks like, at least according to Wikipedia, for the popular vote, you were only about 800 behind Joe Jurgensen.
Yes.
That's not too shabby. Were you?
I don't think so. I mean, my first real serious election year campaign, and I think I did quite well. And there was a lot of
the serious Vermin versus the satirical Vermin.
Yes, it was the year of this campaign was pretty much that, me trying to find the right balance between humor and satire and being serious. And of course, I took part in numerous debates with all the other candidates seeking the nomination, and it's a wonderful thing. Of course, running for president, it's a self-declarative statement. Once you say you're running for president, it becomes an indisputable fact. Nobody can say you're not. And and the beautiful thing about the Libertarian Party is anybody can say they're running for president as a libertarian, and so there's no way to disqualify anybody. There's no mechanism in place to say no, you're not, and no, you can't. And so it's very entertaining. It definitely attracts a total character sometimes. But the debates were where I had to really sell my candidacy, because essentially, I had reached this level of notoriety where I felt like I could make a legitimate offer to the LP of my services as a candidate, as a meme candidate, as a crazy guy with a boot on his head who would draw so much attention. I was not out to troll the party. I was out to invite the party to allow me to troll America on their behalf. The only way it was going to work was if the LP was in on the joke and owned the joke, because a lot of people in the party were afraid that I was making them look like a joke. And so that was a big part. It was one of the main obstacles that we had to overcome as a campaign, was to try and reassure the people and try and make them understand the opportunities that we were offering to them. Yes, we might turn some people off, but there was a very real possibility that we're going to turn a whole lot of people on to liberty that had not been exposed to it before. And so that was certainly a big part of my campaign. It was very different. At one point during the election year, some of the state debate organizers started implementing novelty headwear prohibitions.
And the Vermin Supreme rule.
Yes, and there another candidate, Dan Taxation is Theft Berman. He was wearing a big yellow hat that said "Taxation is Theft," so he was also using that as a gimmick. And so, and when they first did that to me, I'm like, "What? I don't think so. Oh no. Oh, I forget that." I was so offended that they would suggest such a thing. But as time went on, as I started to, understand what's at stake, I always said, okay, I don't need the boot to, to get my ideas across and to present my offer. I mean, and that was and once again, that was part of the struggle. I mean, because a lot of people just knew me from the meme, knew me as a character. And I just like, listen, the boot is not attached to my head. I am not always my character. I am not always on. I'm not always disruptive. I'm a very reasonable man and I was putting on a very reasonable offer on the table. And so trying to contextualize all that, yes, it made perfect. It was I had to remove the boot so that I could try and convince them that they should allow me to wear the boot. And so, that it was once again, it was the first campaign that had, such strategic considerations. But I was happy to compromise my values so that you would not have to.
Well, we appreciate your sacrifice, Vermin. Tell me a little bit about the next 95 days. I mean, you're not the nominee for the LP, but we do have a big election coming up. I suppose if you're there's probably some libertarians who would argue, well, it doesn't matter. The two leading candidates are so similar. They're all for various degrees of government. What's your take on the big choice that a lot of us think we have on November 3rd?
Well, it's a terrible choice, obviously. It's just a bad choice all around. I believe, and I firmly believe that people should be in a position in this country to vote for people. That you shouldn't be put in this terrible position where you are asked to vote for the lesser of the evils, of the two evils, and the trying to harm reduce like that. Although I certainly understand that. We have Jo Jorgensen up at bat. She is an alternative. She's a viable alternative. As Vermin Supreme, I've always said, a vote for Vermin Supreme is a vote thrown away. But and it still is at this point. But a vote for Jo Jorgensen is not a vote thrown away. It is a vote for a more libertarian-oriented future, an anti-state future. Now, of course, once again, you may disagree, and that that's fine. You can write in Andrew Yang or myself or any of these things. But one of the amazing successes that we also had this election year or during my campaign was that the gentleman that I chose to run as my VP candidate, and Spike Cohen, ended up being chosen by the delegates in all their wisdom to be the vice presidential candidate on the Libertarian national ticket. And so it is Jo Jorgensen and Spike Cohen. And of course, Spike Cohen took all sorts of flack for, being associated with me. And he did the Libertarian dad bod calendar and had a picture on his Facebook that showed his nipples, and people were all freaking out and stuff. But, one of the things that we were trying, one of our talking points was that the politics of respectability are out the window. They almost don't matter anymore. And I think we're in post-Trump America. And so anything can happen. If a coup doesn't happen in the next 90 days, we shall see. Yes, it is very interesting. It's the most important election of our lifetime. That's right, friends. The most important, more important than the last one, which was the most important one, and certainly more important than the previous one, which was 5 times more important as the one before that. So this is truly the most important election of our lifetimes, and there is, of course, a lot at stake. But of course, a lot does things that happen in America and democracy do not happen at the ballot box. And of course, all the demonstrations and the people in the streets prove that very point. And I believe the reaction to the American public to the death of George Floyd and this moment in time that has resonated with people across the country, where people are just saying enough is enough, and the national polling indicated that more Americans supported burning down that police station than did not. The people are getting active. I think the people are fed up. We are in a pretty intense moment in time with the COVID and the response to the COVID and the resultant massive unemployment and the crashing economy and all of these things. So we as a nation definitely have a lot to think about and to work with. Of course, as an anarchist, I've always maintained that we need to build up our families, build up our communities, and start building up the parallel systems and structures that will allow us to wean ourselves off of the government, because I believe that it's an unsustainable model.
When you refer to the term anarchist,
Yes, sir.
I think of like lawlessness and kind of just people committing crime and instability. I don't think you're using it in that way, though.
Not at all.
How are you thinking about it?
That is a bad rap. That is a huge misconception perpetuated by the media, and obviously the president is trying to flog it for all it's worth. Anarchism, to me, is one of the highest levels of self-organization that there is. Anarchy is caring for one another. Mutual aid is an integral precept of anarchy. Helping others help ourselves. Anarchy is simply the belief that we can run our own lives much better than the government can, and that anytime that we as a group of individuals come together and have a project that they want to happen, and they make that happen, that is essentially anarchy. Are you familiar with the rainbow gatherings?
No, I'm not.
Okay. The Rainbow Family of Living, Love, and Light, for the past almost 50 years, they have been gathering on public lands in a national forest, up to 10 to 20,000 people out in the woods, deep in the woods. Imagine, if you will, 5,000 people sitting in concentric circles waiting for dinner with their cups and spoons, because that's our tradition. All of a sudden, out of the woods, out of the tree line, come hundreds of people carrying 5-gallon buckets of food. It's dinner time. The buckets of food have been prepared in up to 100 different kitchens, deep in the woods, deep in the forest. The food starts going around. Town criers start going around, telling about the evening's events, the talent shows, the drum circles, the workshops, things that might be of interest to the community. Then the Magic Hat goes around with a Magic Hat parade with roving musicians. And because it's a non-commercial event, because it does not cost anything, because there's no barrier to entry, there's nothing to buy, there's nothing to sell. So if you have money, you throw it in the Magic Hat. It's a spiritual money laundering, if you will. Magic Hat goes around, people toss their money in the hat. The hat goes to the middle of the circle. There's a council, a banking council. They count the money, they announce the take. Anybody can join the council. It's a completely transparent, open to everybody type of situation. The next morning, all the kitchens send their representatives to a kitchen council. They all talk about what they might need, what issues affecting their kitchens and what have you. And they put in their shopping list together and they give it to the supply. Supply goes out to town. They have the money from the banking council. They buy all the supplies. They come back. The kitchens come down, get the supplies. They make the food, and it goes back down. That is repeated over and over again for about 2 weeks. There's also an amazing infrastructure. There's like miles of water pipe that is laid. Springs are tapped. And there's many things that need to be done. And it's a leaderless, hierarchicalless entity. People see what needs to be done. Oh, we need to build a stove. Oh, we need to make a clearing. Oh, we need to create a path. We need to dig a shitter. We need to get some firewood. We need to chop some vegetables. We're going to have a workshop. And all of these things happen because people see a need for them to happen, and they come together and they have a council and they make it happen themselves. There is no leaders telling them what they must do. There are people that they consult. There's people with more knowledge. And essentially it is, and we provide our own security. We provide our own restorative justice when we can. If we are in conflict with the government, trying to prevent them, our gatherings from happening. And it is essentially an anarchistic organization. It doesn't define itself as such, but it is. Anarchy works. People have a food co-op. That is an anarchistic enterprise. Anytime that we come together and create a project that is where we're horizontally organizing that is anarchy. And anarchists believe in freedom, and they believe in liberty, and they believe that the state is diametrically opposed to those things.
Well, one of the things that is very kind of top of mind for a lot of us these days is the coronavirus crisis. And you could argue, well, if there were ever a time where you do want a effective, government organized activity, this would be one of those times. And if you just let everybody kind of do what they want, it kind of affects the common good and the rest of the community. What's your take? Do you know in the terms of COVID, and do you think at that point justification for a stronger government is?
I think it's generally understood that the government and the state tends to want to claim more power, but I think it's arguable that they've overextended a lot in a lot of instances where they've tried to force that married couple to maintain socially distancing, or like arresting people for stepping onto their own porch and things like that. So the government will inevitably use such instances to consolidate its power and exercise its power. The thing about libertarianism and anarchism is that, yes, we do believe in personal responsibility, and that people need to operate as such. And if everybody operated in a responsible way, and did the proper things of washing hands and masking up and maintaining social distancing and sitting tight, and that I believe that all of those things that make sense to us as reasonable people would be enough. But you do bring up the point of enforcement, and that is problematic. Can they get away? Could they entice us in a better way with more carrots than sticks, perhaps?
How would they do that?
So, of course, myself personally, I would make COVID against the law. I would create COVID-free zones because they work really well with drugs and guns and stuff. I would go back in time and kill baby COVID, and then I would build a microscopic wall around our country, antimicrobial and antiviral, and follow that up with a moat filled with hand sanitizer. See, sometimes it's a lot easier to be really funny and stupid than offer real serious alternatives. But of course, if this crisis had been treated more seriously up front, if the government had been paying more attention to the warnings, if the FEMAs and what have you and the CDCs had have done the proper preparation and got the things together that they might need for the pandemic, which was obviously had been warned about for years and years and years as an inevitability. And of course, if it was taken seriously and not denied as a hoax, and if action had been taken straight up front and not been delayed, and contact and tracing and testing had occurred, and the FDA wasn't tied by regulations to prevent people, companies from manufacturing and marketing testing kits and things of that nature, things could have been different. Obviously.
Let me ask you something, Vermin. As someone who comfortably switches from satire to serious analysis, when you observe the president, do you feel like maybe sometimes there's also like a Donald Trump act in a way? And do you see that in him, or do you feel like, no, that's how he really is?
I think there's some of that in there, but that's his personality. I mean, he was a heel on he's a wrestling heel for a little bit. I mean, he picks fights for entertainment and fun. I mean, but he's also a bully. I mean, that's something that bullies and assholes do. They pick fights for fun. That's what trolls do. They say outrageous things to try and get people emotionally hurt or worked up. Mm-hmm. And it's easy. It's easy to do. It's not hard to do. But for somebody in such a position with such power, it's simply atrocious. It's not presidential. It's not professional. It's not normal. It's not the way it should go down. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's that he's a sick individual, that he's a individual, that he's a nasty individual, and he's been enabled by his wealth and his power to be a horrible person. And for some reason, America was ready for a change in 2016, and that's the change they chose. And that's
we definitely
why
did get change.
And I claimed for a while that I helped pave the way for Donald Trump by introducing such ridiculousness to the system. But I think it was just the merging of the political culture, just the with the celebrity culture, and America slowly degrading to idiocracy. So just a lot of things met up. Frightening, but all those things give me hope, because what's bad for America is generally good for my campaign. So there is that.
That is true. I mean, I think people are open to all kinds of alternatives at this point, and a dude with a boot for a hat that wants to give away ponies, like, people are willing to listen. Let me ask you about.
Can I just point out one quick thing about the UBI in the Libertarians, and it's not seemingly not a complete no-go and not completely incompatible. If you look at the Georgist school of libertarianism, it can almost be stretched to cover that. And one of our presidential candidates, Judge Jim Gray, was indeed promoting a negative tax income. Mm-hmm. And so if you were not making enough money to pay taxes, you would have received tax money. So I just wanted to put that out there, because there is conceptual room for a lot of things.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I have some sort of libertarian light tendencies, and for my vantage point, direct cash payments are just a lot more efficient than large kind of multi-layered federal bureaucracies that are poorly planned and executed.
It has the efficiency. It has definitely wins on the efficiency scale on that, for sure.
So my view is, like, if you're going to take my money, then at least put it to use. Don't just have it sucked into
the welfare industrial complex, just administrating that all the welfare and the program. Undoubtedly, it takes a good chunk of the cut to employ so many bureaucrats to do that. The money that could go directly to people. So like I said, I'm not a hardliner. I understand things and understand people's wants and needs, and try and accommodate them when I can. But look up anarchism. Look up mutual aid.
I love it. Yeah,
I
may have to go to one of those little visit you in one of those little forest villages, and check out this parade.
Yes, please do.
So, Vermin, I know we're running short on time. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss, or that we didn't touch on yet, that you think would be relevant for people to hear about?
Oh goodness. Just don't be afraid of the anarchists. Don't believe the hype. It's not disorder. It's not chaos. It's a very high form of order. And do a little research. Just try and be informed. And don't believe the hype on any number of issues, any number of things. I believe that nerds are probably pretty skeptical and like to be based on facts. And I got to tell you about this. The Vermin Supreme Institute. That's what I want to tell you. Yes, it's the Vermin Supreme Institute. What we did is we added the word institute to the end of my name, and we it sounds like super legitimate. And we have become a 501c4. We're a real political, not-for-profit organization that can spend half of our money on political things and the other half on whatever we want, I guess. But we are an educational program. Look us up, verminsupremeinstitute.com. The is implied. It's not actually part of the name. So we've actually been moving in that direction recently, trying to get information out in any number of different formats, education being very important. And so you're all invited to check that out. Of course, check out verminsupreme2020.com, still active site because 2020 is the year. Vermin Supreme is still my name. And you can buy exciting merch. You saw the book. I'm on TikTok at The Real Vermin Supreme. on TikTok. I'm on at Vermin Supreme on Twitter. Vermin Supreme for President, blue checkmark on Facebook. I think there's Reddits. I think there's Discords. I don't know, but definitely if you have the opportunity, please, get the word out to Andrew Yang that he should have me on his program, because I think that would be a whole lot of fun also.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully, I think both you and Andrew are similar in that you have a fundamental trust in the goodness of people. And
I mean, I don't really,
right?
but I put it as a it's a linchpin of my belief system, but I don't really believe it.
Of course not. Of course not. But yeah, check out, for everybody listening, check out the Vermin Supreme Institute. It's at verminsupremeinstitute.com. It's a nice website. There's a bunch of interesting content there. Just checking it out.
Yeah, I mean, we just started, and we're trying to deliver, trying to start out simple, but there's just a lot of possibilities of we're doing different initiatives, and different people are presenting different ideas, and we're hoping to be able to help flesh them out, make them real.
Yeah, it looks really cool. It's cool. So you'll be staying active, and maybe we'll see you in the races in 2024. Do you think you'll make another run?
Yeah, another. I mean, I think I'll have forgotten what a terrible pain in the ass it was, the more serious part of it. But I think it was so successful, and it's about a culture shift, and it's about promoting mutual aid and compassion and love to the party and beyond, and just reaching out to the young people, and trying to spread some hope in these very dark times that we find ourselves.
Yeah, well, we definitely need some hope, and I suspect that a 70-30 split, 70 serious, 30 satirical, could be a really nice balance there, because I agree with you. The satire does help break the ice. You can talk about stuff like go right to the heart of it with humor in a way that's harder, with the pure serious stuff. But I really enjoyed having you on the show, Vermin, and I really appreciate you spending time with me. And it's the first interview I've done with someone not wearing a shirt, but that's first time for everything.
Well, I was wearing a tie. I did have
unlike Andrew Yang, you do wear a tie.
Yes,
there you go. I appreciate you getting formal for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, always want to look your best, kids. Always want to look your best. Absolutely.
Well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up for today, Vermin, and we'll just say goodbye, nerds.
All right, Tom. Thank you very much. You have a very beautiful evening. See you later, nerds. See you on the internet.
Bye, nerds.